Alright, what's up everybody? I am going to be tying a variant of Lance Egan's Rainbow Warrior. This fly is an awesome dropper. You know, I tie this on a size 14 or 16 usually with a 2.5 to 3 millimeter tungsten bead and use it as a dropper on check rigs. Sunny days, it just kills. I think I've seen rainbows literally fight over these things in the water. This particular pattern I'll tie, I'll use a size 14 Firehole outdoors, 316. These hooks are amazing, check them out. And then a 3 millimeter bead. I don't remember where I got these, eBay, some guy in bulk. And then other materials, you need some Scud dub. This Hareline Rainbow Scud dub works awesome. I think it's the best I've found for Rainbow Warriors. You'll need some ultra wire. I just use small ultra wire. Like I said, this is kind of a variant of the original pattern. I like to wrap it with wire. It makes it a little more durable. And I'll show you some other little subtle differences I put into it. And then, last but not least, the old Danville's mylar tinsel. This is really what gives it a bunch of flash in the water. Alright, so you want to tie this pretty light thread. And really that's just so that you can build a good tapered body and not overload the fly with thread. So I'm using some 75 Denier GSP. The only negative to GSP, there's very few to me, but this bobbin will permanently forever be my red GSP bobbin because that wax comes right off of the thread and coats the inside of the bobbin. And you try to put different color thread in there and that color rubs right off onto it. So that's a negative. A little hard to cut sometimes, hard to get your thread started, I guess, compared to other thread, but it's worth it. This stuff's awesome. Alright. Oh, last material, obviously I will be putting a tail on this that will be made out of pheasant tail. Alright, so I'm going to start making that thread body, just wrap towards the back. Here's a big benefit of GSP right here. You can see how flat and nice that body wraps down. I do build a little bit of a taper here. I want to wedge that bead up near the eye, build a slight taper, and then I'm just going to go right to like the bend of the hook. I like to have a little bit of a curve to this thing. Some people tie them on straighter nymph hooks. I like to use a Scud hook because, I don't know, just looks nice. A little curved nymph. Alright, so next I'll go ahead and tie in the tail. Clip some fibers here off my pheasant tail. I like to take these fibers, I use about 3 usually, split them apart. If they're all stuck together still and they line up straight, it doesn't look as good. So you want to split these up, get them all separated, straighten them out, so they kind of splay out a little bit like that. And then go ahead and tie those parallel to the hook shank right along the back. I like to leave them a little bit longer and then just do one wrap and then tug on them to adjust the length rather than try to guess, what the length is going to be. So 2 quick wraps. Good rule of thumb for me, I like to do about 1/3 of the length, or maybe even 1/2 sometimes the length of the hook shank itself. So go ahead and tie these down. As you can see, I got them kind of aligned with the spine of the hook. There we go. And we'll go ahead and secure this the rest of the way. You don't want to wrap too thick, otherwise you're going to screw up the taper of your fly. Just enough to keep them on there. Alright, next I'm going to go ahead and add the piece of wire. Should have had this prepared ahead of time. Don't need much wire. Just couple inches should be able to wrap this no problem. I like to just cut off a big chunk so I can handle it a little easier when I'm wrapping it. And then, you know, as I make more flies, I'll have it sitting there available, ready to go. I like to tie in the wire on the side so it doesn't mess with the taper when you're looking at it from the side as much. So go ahead and start that in there. Oh, that's going towards the bottom. Align it with the side of the hook as much as you can. There we go. And there you go. You do want to cover the wire up all the way because we're going to be wrapping that tinsel right over the body, and you want that red to show through. Kind of, that's the color that you want to flash through the tinsel. Alright, cut off a piece of tinsel. This mylar is cool. And I think I've seen other people put wires on these. They usually wrap the wire first and wrap the tinsel over it, just because it gives it kind of a cool looking texture to the fly. I like to wrap the tinsel under the wire, and it adds durability. If you have that tinsel wrapped up on top of the wire, you know, you catch a couple fish and their teeth tear into that stuff, and the flies don't last very long. I'll go ahead and wrap the body with the tinsel, and then I tie it off when I secure it. I kind of want it to be up on top of the fly. I'll show you why in a second. And then I want to pull it straight back so it's kind of parallel once again to the spine of the hook. And that's because that will end up being the wing case on top of the dubbing. A couple wraps to secure it. Now we want to go ahead and wrap our wire. Wrap it right over that mylar. That kind of gives it a nice little bit of added durability. I mean, you can't even really see it, to be honest, but that's not the point anyway. Keeps that mylar, if it does get all torn up, it keeps it from popping off and unspooling and your fly blowing up. So secure that wire with a couple wraps. Clip it off. Flatten the rest of that wire down. Alright, I want to add our dubbing. There's two different shades of this. I would really like the light shade. I don't know, it just looks better. If you can tell here, there's definitely a big difference in the color. One on the left is a lighter one. I just think it looks better on the fly. It kind of matches the color of the mylar. And it definitely flashes a little more in brighter days. So I overdubbed these quite a bit, and these fibers of this specific dubbing are really long. I like that a lot. It actually makes it look real buggy in the water. I tie it on there pretty thick, and then I trim it afterwards. So it kind of gives it the appearance of legs on the bottom where the hook gap is. Alright, so get your dubbing on there, do a couple of wraps, get a nice little thorax going. That's it. So now you can see we've got a pretty buggy looking little fly here. I'm going to take this mylar tinsel, wrap it right over the top towards the eyelet. Oops, kind of hard with the camera in the way. Give it just a couple of wraps. You want, obviously try to make it kind of parallel with the hook shank. And then just a couple of quick wraps to tighten that down. And then you can clip it off. So, what we have here, unfinished so far, but a good looking little super flashy fly that makes a great dropper. You can see a little wing case, how that kind of glares in the light. Gives off a ton of light underwater, lots of flash. So now what we want to do is build kind of a reddish collar here under the up the bead towards the eye. Alright. So I just use my whip finisher and kind of stack a couple twists on there. Up the bead, give it a nice red collar, a little bit of a hot spot. And then we whip finish. One more for good luck. And that's it. You can see if you look at my whip finisher, see how that wax is coming off? That's what I was saying. Pick a bobbin and say goodbye to it pretty much, because you'll be using that color. It'll come off on everything. If you try to put white thread in there, you'll be using red thread as it comes out. Alright, clip off your excess. You can see how it's a little hard to cut. And that's it, man. Really good looking, effective little fly. I didn't have a camera between myself and my vise. You can tie that thing really quick. Crank out a bunch of them. You can mess with the different weight sizes. I fish, like I said, check rigs a lot, so I want that bigger bead on there just to add weight to my entire rig. As a dropper, it helps get that point fly down quicker. You know, really a good fly for sunny days. Ton of flash underwater, thing's great. But that's my variant of the Rainbow Warrior. The only other thing I really do, add a little loon UV just to shore everything up. There you go. That's it. Great fly.